what set you off on this journey, the steps you took, the progress you made, things you'd do differently, things you'd keep the same, any tips, any advice for people. So, where do you want to start?
From the beginning?
At the start.
At the start, right?
Okay.
So what is that? 33, 34?
Yeah.
I guess there were a couple of things that happened around then. I mean, obviously we met.
Yes.
Which,
changed your life.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think maybe the key thing was getting a Fitbit.
Fitbit.
Key thing there was getting an understanding of what I was actually doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think there was something in the Fitbit ecosystem, the challenges, people you knew, was that any help for you?
No, I think it was a lot of that, like a lot of help. I don't know, everyone is different, but I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
To the point it's not even funny. And I think, having like all the challenges and seeing, what other people were doing, and I'm like, oh, this someone has gone 20,000 steps. Like, no way I'm gonna let that person beat me. And then there was another thing, and that I guess I'm not mentioning anything else, but I was also starting tracking food. And let's be honest, both with tracking activity and tracking food, it's the easiest way of reaching progress.
Did anything change in your diet? You've talked about the quantities, but what about the type of food?
I then went, no, let's just drop it and go full vegan. I would say the first 3 months, I was just walking. Again, I was seeing those steps and those challenges. I was like, I'm gonna beat them. So it was walking. 3 months after Fitbit, did my first 5Ks. And in April, I got my first gym membership.
4.5 months in, you're moving very quickly.
Yeah.
So what were you doing then?
I think I was probably doing like 4 or 5 days in the gym
4 or
still,
5 days
probably.
Strength training.
Yeah, probably around the same with running.
Yeah.
That I then started to actually have a calorie target per day. I was running a crazy deficit, but I think it was actually more set around like 1,700 calories a day.
Wow, that is low.
It's very low, and it's not sustainable. Everything that I was doing at that point was only coming from a looks place. There was nothing about I want to be healthy, I want to be strong, I want to be able to run.
I just want to look good.
I just wanted to look good, right?
And how did plant-based then fit into this? Because obviously plant-based foods are not nutrient dense. Did that help, to stay at 1,700?
Let's be honest, yes, it did. And in terms of like macros and all of that, it made it easier to do, to keep a high protein diet, but still at a low calorie intake.
Yeah.
And at this point, I had very little alcohol.
When did you first start seeing the progress?
I mean, I saw it before, but I think in June was when I was like, oh, I think that's abs.
Yeah.
I had lost quite a lot of weight, but I still had like shape.
Yes.
So I was getting where I wanted. Like I was getting toned, a little bit of abs, but still had like curves. But it was not sustainable because I was still running that calorie target. Then we were going to Tenerife.
Yeah. Yes. This was August.
It was showing that I hadn't been strength training for that long. September ending, and that's when you actually said this 1,700, whatever it is that you're eating, is not enough.
Yes.
And it's not sustainable.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
I was quite worried about the low amount of calories. I was like, you need way more.
Yeah. Like I needed to put on like muscle.
Yes.
And you can't do that eating that little. That's impossible. I was probably doing the same amount of time in the gym, but I was probably better at training. I then did my first 10K. But then here comes. So I think you can do half a marathon. You can't challenge me and me not taking that on. So I started training for that goal. Okay, so I'm gonna go to this amazing beach stretch, do the half marathon distance, like by the beach in Dubai around Christmas.
Yeah.
So I was consistently like on the treadmill. I think the split I had then was 4 days a week.
Okay.
In the gym.
Yeah.
Strength training. And then I still probably ran 4 days a week. So like some days I was only running, some days I was strength training and running, and some I was just strength training.
Yes.
But I was consistently like moving up the distance.
Yeah.
So I think the furthest I've done before Dubai was 18.
18 on a treadmill.
On a treadmill.
We were pulled up. You were ready to get going at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had one Red Bull. I did it. I think that's the key bit. I did it. I'm not gonna be here in Dubai by this beach and not finish this half marathon.
Yeah.
Like that was never an option. But I think the surprise was that I did it. I think like averaging 5:45.
Okay, so 2022 starts. How's the Fitbit holding up?
Not great.
But I think this was the entry point,
Yeah.
the gateway drug into the world of Garmin at this point.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was which one?
That was the venue.
Yes, the Venue 2.
Venue 2.
So you got the venue, and then what was happening now? Back to running, training, what were you doing?
I'm doing both. So it's very much like strength training and running, but it was more and more running. I think at this point I've started to kind of see running a bit as a drug and wanting to hit times. Running is good for that sense, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can see you're either faster than last time or you're not.
Yes,
It's that simple.
it's that simple.
Specifically if you run the same
Yes,
route, like,
yes,
you know.
yes.
So that was very much, I was running and hitting PBs. And then we had the road trip here in the UK where
Yes.
we were literally running all over
Yes.
the country.
Yes, you ran in Milton Keynes, you ran in Manchester, you ran in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And I think this is the point, 10K became your minimum.
I was comfortable doing 10K, but
Yeah.
I would rather not.
Your devices evolved at this point yet again.
Yeah. Because of all the running, I switched to the...
It was a Phoenix 7, but the
Phoenix
S as
7.
well.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as yours.
No, and the screen started to get to you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
I had a bit of FOMO, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so it was at the end of the road trip,
trip.
you then changed to an Epix like
Yeah.
mine, and that was you starting with big bulky
Yeah,
watches.
big bulky.
And
And,
you-
no, I haven't looked back since.
But then the weather's turning. So what were you doing at this point?
So I'm training a lot, but I'm also trying to fit that in with work. So
Yes.
again, I think this is where like running kept me sane because there's lots of days where I didn't have the time to train,
Yeah.
but I had time to go in the gym and run 6K on the treadmill,
Very quickly.
or
yeah.
you know whatever it was that I had time for.
Injury wise, you know, because I know
Oh,
this
yes.
is around the whole, we went Cyprus
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Cape Verde. It
Yeah,
was,
the performance showed up.
it was a hard time.
Yeah, it was a hard time because it literally meant that I could run, but it was
Yeah.
it was painful.
Very painful.
Yeah, you kind of like took the fun out of running.
Yeah.
Which is never great.
Yeah.
When that happens. And I think the peak was because remember we did the first race half marathon.
And talking about race half marathon, was the Kingston half marathon, very flat route.
Yeah.
And you were hoping to PB, weren't you?
Oh yeah.
That was
But-
the intention.
Yeah, but that did not happen.
I mean, the weather, everything about it just wasn't the right day, was
Yeah,
it?
no, it was pouring down.
Yeah.
Absolutely pouring down.
Piriformis.
Piriformis, and yeah, no, it was just not great.
You moved in
End of
November.
November.
Yeah, to the UK.
So a key thing here is that you had set up our home gym
Yes.
before I moved.
And there's a video you can click right now, and you'll be able to see the video of Hannah and myself doing a tour around the home gym. I think one of the drivers for the home gym was your arrival in terms of somewhere for you to train
Yeah.
before going into the office
Yeah.
every morning.
Yeah, not having to do a drive,
Yes.
you know, when I barely knew how to drive in this country, right? But not having to do a drive to the gym, you know, which would take 30 minutes again out of my day, then
Yeah.
having to drive back in traffic.
Yeah.
And somehow get ready and be, you know, in office in London by 9.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is a lot to do
Yeah.
before 9.
Yeah.
So having a home gym where we can just literally roll out of bed, be in the gym 15 minutes later, I think that was crucial to stay on it.
And then we're into this year, which is 2023. And how did that start?
I mean, it started off okay,
Yeah.
but then, you know, that thing that they call to fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
It was definitely that.
That was the move into hybrid training.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
me through this.
I'm not sure if I want to say like we upped because again we were doing the same things. I think we did it with a different purpose.
Yeah.
So like for example, the running at this point, we started adding different things on like previously we would go out and run 10K without a fault, and we
Yes.
did the same route,
Yep.
trying to keep the same pace, and like, or technically I was trying to run as fast as possible. Every time.
Yep.
And that's not sustainable either from
Yeah.
a running perspective. So here, you know, we're testing to do a bit of sprints and do longer distances, focusing more and more on heavier strength
Yes.
training, like actually trying to progress that.
Yeah, progressive overload,
Yeah.
putting on some muscle, putting on some size, upping the protein. Somewhere in all this, you went for a DEXA scan.
Yeah.
And what was the big output of that?
No, the big output was that I had put on lots of muscle. I think it was
Yes.
like 4.5 kilos. And I had dropped quite a lot of body fat as
Yes,
well.
you were
so-
heavier on the scales.
Yeah, I was heavier on the scales,
significantly
like heavier than I've ever
But
been almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, heaviest ever, but lower body fat,
Yeah.
lots of muscle. You felt stronger.
Yeah.
And then what did that do to your running?
Well, then all of a sudden I had hit like another sort of PB streak. And again, this guy says, I bet you can do sub 5, as in pace.
Yeah.
Do sub 25.
Sub 25,
Whatever,
yes.
right? But I did.
Yeah, in the park just around the corner.
Yeah.
We went in just one morning.
Early morning.
In your waterproof trainers, not even your proper running trainers. And you just smashed it out.
Yeah. And then the weekend after,
Yep.
I went to
Sweden.
I was in Sweden.
Yeah.
And it started off as I'm just gonna do a casual 10K. I forgot my chest strap and
Yes.
everything. I was almost about to turn around. It was that kind of run.
Yeah.
But then somewhere mid through or a bit through, I realized that's actually quite a decent pace. I kind of started picking it up and did another
PB.
10K. I did the River Thames and I did again.
Half
So,
marathon PB.
yeah.
That cough
Sub
just reminded me.
155.
That cough just reminded me you had COVID
Oh
somewhere
yeah,
around
oh yeah,
there.
yeah.
So it's in and amongst this, you had COVID
Before the 5K.
before the 5K.
I literally,
Yeah.
I think I was cleared like 3 days before the 5K.
yes. You're at this place, you're the strongest you've ever been, heaviest you've ever been, lowest body fat, most muscle, fastest you've ever been, best endurance. I guess if you were to summarize, what would you say were the key things?
Tracking is key. Again, with such a sweet tooth that I had, meant that like certain things were not accessible on like a,
Okay.
yeah, so that is another
Yeah.
one. The mix of running and strength training.
The hybrid nature.
Yeah, the hybrid nature I think is key. So I wish I would have taken on the health perspective a lot earlier.
Yeah.
And not just how things looks.
Yeah.
Because, being almost 38, that's probably a lot more important.
Yes.
And I wish I would have had that mindset.
I hope that was kind of helpful for anyone, who's watching. If you've got any questions, either for myself or Hannah, put them in the chat. Hannah will respond. And if you've got any tips, any advice, anything you can recognize in this journey, please chat. As always, like, share, subscribe, and hopefully we will see you in the next video. Take care.
Take care.